In the time of Jesus, they seem to have had at least two different kinds of enclosures for sheepfolds. On the one hand, you have those enclosures that were, well, if you go to the Lake District, you can see something very similar, where there's a kind of wall, fairly low, but a wall built in a circle, or perhaps a square, and there's a gap in the wall. And the sheep would be made to go inside this circle or square, and then something would be put across the gap to keep them in and to protect them from anything else that might come in them. And it might be, obviously, something to do with bushes or wood, but more often than not, it would be the shepherd himself. He would sit across the gap to make sure that nothing could get in, nothing could get out without him knowing it. So when Jesus says in the second part of this gospel, I am the door, the gate of the sheepfold, he's thinking of a fold like that, and that as the shepherd, he protects his sheep. He keeps them safe. He doesn't let anything get in, anything escape and get lost. It's something about his care for us. On the other hand, there is another kind of fold that he seems to be talking about, and probably we have the same sort of things in our time. It's a big collective enclosure, a place where you put lots of sheep that belong to lots of different people. And of course, the then issue is, how do you identify your own sheep? Well, in this day and age, I think we mark them with colours, and I believe even these days they have tags in their ears so you can identify each sheep individually. But it wasn't like that back then. They relied upon a most extraordinary fact, which is that sheep recognize the shepherd. Now, we might think this is not possible, but quite some time ago, I remember reading a magazine article where it talked about how scientists had researched the whole thing about the behavior of sheep. And they said sheep actually do recognize voices, in particular the shepherd. It goes even more than that. Apparently sheep recognize the face of the shepherd. So in other words, they can tell two people apart. Now you might think, well, so what? Of course, it's of enormous importance to the shepherd and to the sheep. Furthermore, they can work out what kind of mood you're in. They recognize just from your features how you're feeling, whether you're upset and angry, whether you're calm and reflective. It seems to pass on to the sheep that kind of vibe that the shepherd has. So the shepherd can make them agitated as well as calm them down. It's extraordinary. Now Jesus uses this truth when he's talking about this collective sheepfold, this sheep enclosure, that perhaps it's that they have them on the way to market or something, I don't know, but an individual shepherd will go to reclaim his sheep from the fold, and he calls them out, calls them by name, and they recognize his voice. Now here I think the kind of thing that Jesus is telling us is slightly different to the second picture. In the second picture, it's this idea of him taking care of us, and that's the main emphasis. In this first one, listening to the voice of the shepherd, it's to do with responding. It's to do with calling. You see, we could imagine that the idea that Jesus is a good shepherd is simply about him taking care for us, rescuing us, laying down his life for us. And all of that is absolutely true. But there's something else that he expects. He expects us to respond to his call, to recognize him, to recognize the shepherd, to know him. And I suppose in that there is this challenge to us. All too easily we can say, well, God will take care of it. It'll be fine. We don't need to worry. Now, God will take care of it. It will be fine. But he does say, you need to respond. You need to listen. You need to hear my call. He calls each one of us, and he promises always to look after us.